It's still all things transfer portal for Michigan football, where things stand, and we're going to do so with a special guest making his first appearance on the show. We will do that right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday. We are back in doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And that's the Wolverines' Anthony Broome making his triumphant debut on the show. Unlike Clayton Sayfie, I asked you to be on it. Clayton's never been on the show without asking me. So This is new. This is new territory for On 3.
Well, I'm glad the check finally cleared. I've been trying to get to the front of the line on your guest list for years, so I appreciate you having me.
Well, you're my travel. We've only traveled really once, but still, travel buddy. We've done Disney together.
Well, I mean, technically, we travel a lot together. Like, not together, but we see each other on the road. But we have broken bread before on the road, separate from work. So
that is
good times.
That is true. So first off, thank you to all of our everydayers who watch or listen to the show every single day. And thank you for making us your first listen. We'll start with the latest on the transfer portal, and then we'll get into Anthony's favorite additions thus far, as well as his concerns. So, Anthony, let's go ahead and start with just your general view as the way things are going. There's a mixture of excitement, a mixture of anticipation, dread, all of the things. How do you see Kyle Whittingham's first go with the portal so far here in he's only a couple weeks in, but how do you feel about it at this point?
Yeah, I'll say this. I mean, at the start of the process, when Michigan was losing guys as opposed to actually bringing in guys for visits and getting commits, a lot of people were up in arms about that. And because we live in a instant gratification kind of media sphere, maybe even more so than that these days, I think a lot of people were ready to plant flags about what the plan was, how well they were actually going to be able to navigate this. And then as time has gone on, what we've seen is I think the staff really shrewdly address a lot of the needs that we thought that they had already, that they had by also, by some of the transfer portal departures. So, really, I think that Kyle Whittingham and his staff have done really an outstanding job so far of not just moving quickly on guys, but player retention too. I mean, there's a couple of departures that hurt and that will hurt, and we'll see what this looks like when the dust settles. But I give this staff a lot of credit for coming in and really, I know it's a 2-week transfer portal period, but really, they were behind by 3 weeks while Michigan was in a coaching search. You have guys evaluating their futures. You have agents talking to other schools. Tampering season runs rampant and to a certain extent did with some of Michigan's guys. But really, they've had to do 5 weeks of work here in, a little less than 2 or 3 weeks here. And I've been really impressed by that. So a lot of work to do still. As we keep telling our people, it changes minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, in this fast moving transfer portal era. But when you look at how they've done in the aggregate, I can't do anything but praise the work that's been done.
So I've been in the Everydayers Discord for this show, and I have been preaching panic. I've been the opposite way. Everyone panic, burn down the program, get your torches and pitchforks. Actually, no, I'm doing the opposite of that. I am preaching patience. But patience is hard to kind of come by. But at the same time, right, I know right now I can't say his name, but I know we're waiting to find out what's going on with Jonah Leia or whatever. Leia. I'm going to say Leia because we're Star Wars people. So Jonah Leia. But obviously, people were freaking out about whether or not Smith Snowden was going to be in the class, and he is very much in the class now. People just had to kind of wait. I know people are freaking out about linebackers, and we'll get to concerns momentarily, but just when you look at some of the, and we'll also momentarily get into some of the ones that you feel are the top-notch guys in the class, but when you look at the fact that they've been able to go out and get not all, but most of their top targets, what does that say about these guys as a coaching staff?
Well, one, it helps that you're coming over from a place in Utah where, the Big 12 is not the Big 10, but if you bring good players from Utah, from a very good Utah team, I don't think that's really an up transfer. I think that will translate for a lot of these guys. I'm looking at the John Henry Daleys and the JJ Buchanans and the Smith Snowdens of the world. I think that they had a pretty good grasp, with player meetings on who was coming back and what they were going to need to attack. And I think that's where it helps you to have the continuity of, you have Sean McGee in the front office. You have a couple of assistants in Tony Alford and Lou Esposito. And I guess technically Kerry Coombs is a retention, but it was a 3-week retention because he was here shortly before Sharon Moore was fired.
Michigan legend, Kerry Coombs.
That's right. You know what? I used to have a buddy that would say that guy basically had an office down at Cass Tech for the amount of recruiting that he did in the Detroit area. So I'm a big fan of that hire, but technically a retention in between coaching staffs. I just think it speaks to their ability to identify and attack things in a really efficient way. Maybe not quite to the extent of, it seems like whenever Dusty May and his program on the basketball side of things have brought in guys, they're pretty close to undefeated in that. And that includes, I'm sure admissions and transcripts, I get all of that discussion, but Dusty May and those guys don't even bring guys on campus without getting those sort of hurdles cleared out. So to me, that's kind of the gold standard of portal efficiency. But, a football program is so much larger and there's so many more, there's more players available. There's more players on your roster. There's more coaches on your staff. I think the ability, if you're looking for a through line between all of these things, is that Whittingham has done a really nice job of both hiring coaches quickly and efficiently and having those coaches get to work quickly and efficiently. And when pencils are down here on Friday, when the portal closes and the dust settles on this, we're going to look back on how different this looks, both on the staff and the roster, be like, wow, they got a lot done in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, whatever it was.
Speaking of a lot done, they had a lot of retention to get to. I think I was a little bit surprised with how many guys ended up in the portal after not having a bunch of names coming up before the bowl game saying they plan to enter the transfer portal. So I think we're a little bit shell shocked by that, but the job that he was able to do, not only to retain guys like Bryce, I know he hasn't been announced officially, but Andrew Marsh, I know there's no concerns there at this juncture, but even to get guys to withdraw from the portal, that's been impressive. What are your thoughts on the job he's done there?
It's been pretty good. And again, I've got the list in front of me here. I mean, I think they're up to 27, 28 guys out. And you really can count on maybe one hand the amount that I think are consequential in terms of the short and the long term. I mean, I would have loved to keep Cole Sullivan around. Justice Haynes just couldn't really quite make them. I won't say make the money work, but more so the allocation of resources. I don't know that made him a fit, but a couple young defensive backs would have liked to keep Elijah Dotson and Jaden Sanders, but overall, I also, you also want to credit the collective too. The Champion Circle, I think, did a really nice job, even before Whittingham, of being part of this infrastructure that got everyone to really calm things down and not make any hasty decisions, because there was plenty of reason to do that in the aftermath of Sharon Moore's firing. So the fact that no one was really looking for a reason to leave per se, but you wait things out, you meet with the new staff, and then guys go from there. I think it would have been naive to not expect any sort of attrition when you make this type of transition between staffs. But overall, the job they did retaining guys, and even the guys who entered the portal and came back too, they're not quite transfer portal wins, but guys that dip their toes in the water, wanted to see what else was out there. And Michigan still prioritized them and got them back, and I think has gotten back just about everyone that I think is a bona fide long-term piece. So, again, I think great work there in roster retention as well.
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible. I'm with you. I think everyone's with you on the Cole Sullivan of it all. But, hey, like I brought up in the show, I believe yesterday, Jay Hill has last 2 years, his leading tackler has been a sophomore linebacker. So Nathaniel Wusu-Boateng and Chase Taylor, your time is now. So there you go. All right, we're going to continue on. I want to know who are your top players, Anthony's top players in the transfer portal that came out of the transfer portal rather, and where Michigan goes from here, plus a heck of a lot more. We're going to do that here in just a moment. But before we do, the college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoffs. There's only one left. So right now, every college football playoff game day, the last one coming up next week, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on bets that you already feel good about. You can ride the favorite when you think a team controls the matchup, take a shot on the underdog if you feel an upset coming, or build a parlay around the players and moments you think decide the game. And then you apply the profit boost and go and win even more. When you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long, so visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. Thank you for making Locked On Wolverines your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level. Go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Wolverines with no interruptions. Here's the kicker. It's my own paywall. Members only Discord access. If you want the inside scoop on things, when I have it, you'll get it. I'm saying way too much in there. I'm telling you, I would. It's career suicide is what it is. But for you, it's just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonwolverines.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, we're back with Anthony Broome. Anthony, who, like, obviously Michigan's got a lot of guys here out of the portal. And they're still adding, right? Like, I still expect there to be, I think your colleague, Chris Ballas, said that they will get a top-notch linebacker, but so far that's where they've missed. But otherwise, like, they've gotten a lot of hits. When you look at who they've brought in, who are those hits in your eyes?
I'll start with defense because I think a lot of where my praise is going to come is on the offensive side of the ball. But in terms of what they've done on defense so far, specifically in the secondary, I like the addition of Christopher Bracey, experienced safety that should step into that rotation, maybe some Rod Moore insurance. We'll see what exactly happens with Rod and if he comes back and how healthy he is, should that occur. But he's the guy that I think can slot pretty nicely in that rotation. Talk about retention too. If you had a 4-man safety rotation that had Rod Moore, Chris Bracey, Jordan Young, Mason Curtis, I'm pretty okay with that. I think that has a chance to be really good for them. So that's what I like. Smith Snowden, kind of similar to Zeke Berry at cornerback, guy that has that inside out sort of potential, though I think that he's more of a, if I had to pencil in a lineup today, he's probably your starting nickel, but a guy who can play both of those spots. Offensively so far is where I think that, they've really executed this. I won't say flawlessly because I don't know what's a home run and I don't great additions or things like that, but the pass catchers, JJ Buchanan, a guy that had 427 yards and 5 touchdowns as a true freshman at Utah, a guy that actually someone on our board comped him earlier today to Charlie Becker down at Indiana. And that comp lands with me. I like that one a lot. Jamie French didn't play this year at Texas, but former, I believe, top 60 recruit and a guy that's friends with Andrew Marsh, friends with Bryce Underwood, just another kind of blue chip guy to throw into that room. So I like what they did with the pass catchers. I think they've done a nice job too in attacking the quarterback situation in the aggregate. Bryce, I have no concern with him. He's a 5-star talent. He's the incumbent starter. I think that he will take a big, the biggest leap that he'll take in his career. I do think will be this offseason, just with the game slowing down and the physical strides, the mental strides. I think he's going to be in an offense now that exemplifies his strengths, but not a lot of depth behind him. Chase Herbstreit, Tommy Carr, Brady Smigel. I think that was it prior to the portal period. You go and get a guy in Braden Fowler Nicolosi, who I think started 28 games in his career. He's got a big arm. He's got some moxie to him. Maybe, maybe kind of a jock in terms of his mentality, but you won't, to a certain extent, I like having your backup quarterback wired that way. Then Colin Hurley, a guy who was a former 4-star recruit, enrolled at LSU. He was 16. So he's been in a college football program for 2 years already. He's got 3 to 4 years of eligibility left. Maybe there's some juice there for you to tap into. So all of a sudden, I look at the quarterback room and I feel like it is a strength on that side of the ball now. I don't know how much of a strength because we don't know how good all of those guys will be in their roles, but I think they've done a really nice job in rounding that group out.
I like how Colin Hurley in particular said, I'm supposed to be in a quarterback room with Bryce Underwood one way or another. So I'm making that happen one way or another.
I didn't think about that. That is cool.
Yeah. The pass catchers really intrigue me just in general. Now let's actually talk a little bit about the coaching staff. And when I say coaching staff, I mean Jason Beck, because you mentioned that Bryce is going to be in a system that's going to be a lot more complementary to his skill set, and bringing in JJ Buchanan and Jamie French, along with Andrew Marsh, along with the other tight ends that they've got, right? Like we've seen some good things from Zach Marshall, and we've seen some good things from Deacon Tonielli. And Hogan Hanson's back, right? Like if he's healthy, like I think people forget, like he wasn't necessarily going to be Colston Loveland, but kind of had that Colston Light feel to him. So like, what are your expectations when you've kind of seen what you've seen about Jason Beck, and then having all of these different guys able to come in? And we didn't even touch on the running backs room, which is, I think, clearly the best in the country at this point.
Yeah, adding Taylor Tatum as like a low risk, high reward add in a room that already has Jordan Marshall, Savion Hyder. Really nice work there. I say nice work a lot, but they've done a lot of nice work, so I'll say it. This offense in general, still kind of getting to know Jason Beck and what he's all about. But the one thing that, I've sort of picked up when we've done our research on him is that, he is truly a guy that's going to run the offense that exemplifies the strengths of all of the guys that they have on the roster. Now, so does that mean that Bryce Underwood is going to run like Devin Dampier did last year? No, it doesn't. But I think a lot of us said throughout last year that if Bryce Underwood didn't run more, it would be malpractice. And it was. So I think that we'll see more of that. I think that also, as it pertains to the pass catchers, I like the upside, and I like the fact that all of these guys are going to be here together for at least the next 2 years, like a Bryce, a Buchanan, Marsh, French, all of those types of guys, the tight ends that you spoke about before. This isn't like a one-off, build the roster for 2026 and see how good your offense can be. There's staying power here. Like they're going to have 2 years together. And the thing that still excites me is that if Bryce is the guy that I think he can be, and contrary to what some people feel, his freshman year didn't really change a lot for me. I thought that a lot of what happened was an 18-year-old starting college football, drinking through the fire hose in an offense that wasn't necessarily always pandering to his strengths. I think that if Bryce is the guy that we think he can be, he's a rising tide that helps develop these guys too, by virtue of how talented he is. So that you have this core group of pass catchers now, when really you had Andrew Marsh and a bunch of rubber bands in the room last year to make something cool happen. This is really exciting to me. And I think that Jason Beck, mixed with Jim Harding, who I think the world of, he's one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. They're going to do some, I think, really good things here. And they might have to. We're going to talk about defense here in a bit, but they might have to put up points. But I think that there are a lot more pieces there to do that, and a lot more infrastructure around him to do that now than there was last year.
It's kind of crazy to think, like I remember coming off of the New Mexico game this year and saying on this very show that, hey, they might have the type of offense that could actually get in a shootout. and actually do something. And then it turned out that that was dead wrong. I don't know football. I don't know ball at all. But
give yourself more credit than that. No, we all thought that.
Yeah. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this works, because there's a track record there, and it's just going to be, it's going to be fun to watch. But I want to get to your concerns, which obviously means we're going to talk defense. And we're going to do that here in just a moment. All right, Anthony, what is your concern level for the guys that they have yet to get? Now, obviously, we have 3 more days. You have to correct me if I'm wrong. The transfer portal's open for a couple more days, but I mean, guys can still, I think, commit once they've entered, right? So, like, they don't have to find a new school.
Right.
It's about being
right. Friday is the deadline to enter, and mind you, like, you can enter on Friday, but then the school still has 48 hours to put you in. So there could be some lingering guys throughout the weekend. But if you're in the portal, once, like I said, pencils down earlier, you could still pick somewhere to go. I think Michigan's ad drop date is January 27th, if I'm not mistaken. So there could be additions that come in well past the deadline, but you just have to be in by then.
Good luck with some of those guys trying to find classes that they like. I missed one of my early classes, right? Like Michigan also has a rule. I'm assuming it's still instituted. If you miss one of your first 2 classes, you're just not in that class anymore. And like I had something, I don't know if it was sick or I had like a trip or something like that where I missed the first class and I just wasn't back in time. And then I couldn't get back in it, right? Because good classes they have wait lists and such. But all right, where are your concerns stand at the moment? And, you know, you can be even handed with this. You don't have to be like, oh my goodness, it's linebacker. I mean, maybe that is it, but like, you know, like mixture of concern with understanding kind of where they're trying to go and options that are available.
It would be that front 2 levels of the defense right now. Now at linebacker, I do like Troy Bowles, and I think that Nathaniel Lusu-Boateng is going to be a good player. I just don't know if that's the group that maximizes what you can be. You know, they've added Max Alford in the portal, Tony Alford's nephew, a guy who played for Jay Hill at BYU, kind of more of a depth guy still, and a lot of young pieces in there. The front, trivia question for you. I'm gonna flip the script here. It's my show here for a second. Do you know how many sacks Michigan has coming back from the edge rushers without John Henry Daley?
Oh my goodness. I'd have to imagine it's something like 2 at this point. Like I'm just trying.
I think it's you know, I should have been better prepared. I think it is 2 exactly. It's either 1.5 or 2, but it's Cam Brandt and Dom Nichols. That's it. Yeah, so
I figured I knew Cam had at least 1, and I think Dom Nichols maybe had 1 in like week 1, maybe week 3,
something like that. But it's not a lot there. So you bring in John Henry Daley, 11.5 sacks there. He was an All-American this year, but he's coming off of, I believe, an Achilles injury that knocked him out for the season. So he expects to be back, and he's more of it would be disrespectful to call him like a try-hard guy, but he is one of those motor type of players. So as long as that's there, I think he's going to be a really, really good piece for this edge rusher room. But
he's a real gym rat, that guy. You know, there
you go. First guy in, last to leave, all those types of things. I think Nate Marshall has a bright future. I think Carter Meadows has a bright future, the 5-star freshman, but like how ready are those guys to be pieces? So those are my questions at edge. At defensive tackle, like as of this recording, like Eno Etta is still in the transfer portal. So really all they have right now is Trey Pierce and a couple of other guys. I know they brought in the kid from Utah. We're waiting on some clarity on his situation, but you know, there are a lot of names, but not a lot of proven commodities there. And that does worry me because, you know, even Kyle Whittingham would tell you and has told us that they want to build this thing at the lines of scrimmage. And I think on the offensive side of things, they're going to have some pretty good pieces there. On defense, it's just a lot of guys right now. And it's going to be, you know, again, the jury's out until this roster, maybe even until we get a spring roster handed to us, metaphorically speaking. But between that and the linebacker situation, really just in terms of depth, and it's hard to have depth now. No one really has quality depth in this sport anymore. given the portal and given the guys want to play right away. But, there's not a lot of hang your hat on this type of guy in either the defensive tackle or the linebacker room. So really, to me, those would be my biggest lingering concerns as this portal cycle wraps up.
Do any of your, kind of go back to the coaching staff, do any of your concerns, are any of those allayed by the fact that this is a coaching staff that has managed to do more with less? They don't seem to rely on getting those blue chip guys.
Well, that's part of the calculus too, is that in the aggregate, you could be less talented with more on paper questions. But for 2 decades, this has been a coach and a staff, and mind you, all these guys have been in and out of it, but more or less a regime that has maximized and squeezed every drop of what it can get from its players. Do I think that in a year's time or 2 years' time, the talent level will be much better at really all those positions on defense? Yeah, I would think so. But in the here and now, that's the other thing about Jay Hill's the defense, is that, again, we've had a hard time nailing down what exactly it is, because he does run a lot and throw a lot at you. But you can scheme around some of these deficiencies too, with some, with your packages and the things that you throw out there. So again, a friend used to say, I don't believe in concerns early, in the offseason. I believe in question marks. I would call these question marks, and maybe at linebacker, a very big question mark, but I'm not ruling out that if the roster isn't quite, quote, up to our standards or whatever people want to say about it, that this staff can squeeze more than we think is capable out of them.
All right. Well, and on that terrible disappointment, it's time to end. I have to say it almost every time, and it's just, I've got to do my Jeremy Clarkson every single show that I can remember to do it. That's Anthony Broome from the Wolverine. Go over there to thewolverine.com, subscribe like I do. It's everything that they do over there is fantastic. Even Clayton's writing is okay. So even he's all right. But
your beef with him is your business. You'll never get me to say a bad word about Clayton.
The only reason I'm doing it is just because it's you here, and obviously he's been on this show like 10 times.
Clayton is the John Henry Daley of the Wolverines staff.
Yes.
Just a super high output, high energy guy. So
that he is.
Blessed to be part of it.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again very soon. Peace.